Good evening. The special meeting of the Annapolis City Council for Monday, September the 11th will be called to order at 7:05 p.m. At this time, would everyone willing and able please stand for the invocation given by Alderwoman Pindell Charles.
Good evening. As we reflect upon the events that have occurred, especially most recently, as well as September the 11th today, let us meditate upon the words in this earnest, heartfelt prayer expressed in the program bulletin of the Beacon Light Seventh-day Adventist Church in Ward 3 by Pastor Claude Harris on this past Saturday. Lord, there are many different types of prayer and many different ways to pray. Many think prayer can only be heard if you are on your knees, but God hears your prayers whether or not you are kneeling, standing, sitting, driving in a car, or taking a shower. He hears prayers spoken aloud, whispered, or completely silent. Some pray out of sheer frustration when having difficulty completing a task. Others when hoping for something good to happen, while still others pray with passion and sincere desperation of needing a Savior. God loves for you to talk to Him, and He is interested in every aspect of your life. He hears the trivial prayers such as losing your keys, and He hears your desperate cries for help. But He especially loves to hear earnest, heartfelt prayers that come from a deep desire to grow ever closer to Him. It's important to be faithful in your prayer life, but it ceases to be prayer if it is done by habit alone. Don't make the mistake of thinking prayer is best saved only for bedtime. All too often at the end of a busy day, tired and exhausted, prayers can end up being mere babble, repetitive and meaningless. Without even realizing it, your mind has drifted to all the things you need to accomplish the next day. It's good to pray at bedtime, but also pray throughout your day and find that special time in your schedule each day that you give to God to really talk to Him, sharing your innermost thoughts, dreams, and desires. And don't forget to praise Him. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mayor Panladies.
Present.
Alderman Budge.
Here.
Alderman Payon.
Present.
Alderwoman Pindell Charles.
Present.
Alderwoman Finlayson.
Present.
Alderman Lipman.
Present.
Alderman Kirby.
Present.
Alderman Pfeiffer.
Present.
Alderman Arnett.
Present.
At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
This time I have an amendment to the agenda,
Please.
and that would be a move to amend the agenda to include City Council citation for Mr. Julius Rosenwald.
Is there a second?
Second.
Alderwoman Finlayson.
Yes, thank you. I'd also like to amend the agenda to include City Council citations for Mr. Irving Crowdy and Mr. Ronaldo Brown.
All right. Is there any discussions? Alderman Budge.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move to amend the agenda to include Charter Amendment CA 217, Offices of Law and City Clerk, and Ordinance O 4717, Offices of Law and City Clerk on first reader.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Madam City Attorney, would you please present our next item?
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is ceremonial items beginning with ID 309-17, City Council citations for backpack donations to Moon's Barbershop, Ronaldo Brown, Irvin Crowdy, and a City Council citation to Julius Rosenwald for his one-man ministry.
If Alderwoman Finlayson, Pindell Charles could join me at the front.
It is a pleasure to present three citations this evening. We know that, and we have heard it said many times, it takes a village. Well, it takes a village to make sure that all of our young people are successful in school. And the very start of their success is their ability to begin the school year off right. And so this evening, it is a pleasure to recognize 3 different organizations and their leaders for helping our young people get off to a great start. So I'd like the owners of Moon's Barbershop to come forward. And while we're giving them citations this year for all that they have done this year, we know that they have been giving to our young people and taking care of our community for many years. So we're just catching up to say thank you for all that you've done. So I'm presenting the City Council citation to Moon's Barbershop, and it reads, on behalf of the citizens of the City of Annapolis, we confer upon you the City Council citation in recognition of your dedication to our students, our youth, and our community as a whole during this year's backpack giveaway. We acknowledge your significant contribution by providing food and treats for our local children and their families, and we applaud you for ensuring that each student who showed up was given a backpack and the necessary items to begin the school year. This is so significant, especially for the families who could not provide. Your selfless service to our community over the past several years is a true testament to your commitment to make Annapolis a better city, and we honor you tonight, given under our hands in the Great Seal of the City of Annapolis, and it's signed by Mayor Michael Panelides and all 8 members of the City Council. Thank you very much. Would you like to say something?
I just say, like she said, it takes a village to raise a lot of kids, but I have my team here, which is called Team Moon. Will you all stand? And without them, I can't do nothing. They push me, they make sure everything is right, and I'm like a boss now. I really don't have to do nothing, because they want to do everything. But I thank all y'all for coming, and all y'all for doing what y'all do for me. Y'all know I always say that. All right, and this one right here, this is my diamond. 25 years married to her and never missed a beat. And she's always there for me, and I just want to thank you too.
Mr. Ronaldo Brown? I'm afraid he's not here, so we will hold this until our next meeting. Mr. Irvin Crowdy? And he didn't make it either. So we will hold these 2 and recognize them at our next City Council meeting. Thank you.
Oh, I can do it here. Good evening. At this time, we do continue to recognize the students and the children here, but we need to go back in history. City of Annapolis City Council citation, Mr. Julius Rosenwald, One Man's Ministry. On behalf of the citizens of Annapolis, we posthumously confer this City Council citation as a celebration of unity between all Annapolis communities and set our hearts and minds on remembering Mr. Rosenwald's significant contributions 100 years ago and beyond, and dedicate ourselves to keeping his ideals alive. We recognize that in 1917, 100 years ago this year, Mr. Rosenwald and his family established the Rosenwald Fund for the well-being of mankind. This was as a result of Mr. Rosenwald being very instrumental and ignited by Mr. Booker T. Washington, who was an African American back in during those times 100 years ago, and recognizing that African American children needed to be educated. Mr. Rosenwald, with Mr. Booker T. Washington's ignition, built 5,200 schools between the states of Texas and Maryland. Mr. Rosenwald was born of Jewish immigrant parents, and he was very instrumental in making the relationship between himself and Mr. Booker T. Washington. That decision was very responsible in educating many children. This fund was intended to use all of its funds for philanthropic purposes, donating over $70 million for educational purposes that supported a variety of Jewish and African American causes. We also acknowledge Mr. Julius Rosenwald used the Rosenwald Fund to build 292 Rosenwald schools in Maryland, with 23 erected in Anne Arundel County, and one of them being constructed in Annapolis at the northwest corner of West Street and Route 2, namely Camp Parole School, now the Walter S. Mills Parole Elementary School. It is appropriate at this time to take note of Mr. Rosenwald's extraordinary work that continues today as our local children return to school. And we ask the question, where would many of us be at this time but for Mr. Julius Rosenwald? Given under our hands in the Great Seal of the City of Annapolis, this is the 11th day of September, 2017, signed by our mayor as well as every member of the Annapolis City Council. Thank you.
Please.
Thank you. We have been joined by Mr. Crowdy. Mr. Crowdy, would you come on up? Mr. Crowdy is one of the recipients of the citation because of his backpack giveaway, which happened to have taken place in my ward in Newtown 20, along with his basketball team. They put together a phenomenal backpack giveaway also. So it's a pleasure, Mr. Crowdy, to recognize you this evening, and you'll receive the City Council citation, and I'll read it again. On behalf of the citizens of the City of Annapolis, we confer upon you the City Council citation in recognition of your dedication to our local students, our youth, and our community as a whole during this year's backpack giveaway. We acknowledge your significant contribution by providing food and treats for our children and their families, and we applaud you for ensuring that each student who showed up was given a backpack and the necessary items to begin the school year. This is so significant, especially for the families who cannot afford them. Your selfless service to our community over the past several years is a true testament to your commitment to make Annapolis a better place. And we honor you tonight, given under our hands in the Great Seal of the City of Annapolis, and signed by the mayor and all 8 aldermen. So congratulations. Would you like to say something? And he's shy to boot.
Thank you.
Madam City Attorney, would you please present our next item?
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is ID 30717, swearing in of new Annapolis firefighters.
If I could have Chief Stokes, Deputy Chief Simmons, and Deputy Chief Romali please join me at the front.
Holy cow, who's paying for this?
The people you see standing behind me are the new firefighters we have in the City of Annapolis. And I'm proud to say that we got these by applying through a federal grant, and I want to thank the good work of our Chief, David Stokes. We needed more firefighters to help out in the City of Annapolis. As many of you may know, we've been recently upgraded to a Class 1 fire department. To put that in perspective, there's 157 cities in Maryland. Only 2 have the distinction of being a Class 1. Everyone should have received a letter from my office, because how that impacts you is you might be eligible for reduction in your insurance rates. Some people don't get it, some people do, and have written in, they saved a couple $100s. But the people you see behind me right now are going to be the future of the Annapolis Fire Department. So I want to pass the microphone around, let them introduce themselves, tell you where they're from, and then I'll let Chief Stokes say a few words.
Don't tap them out. I'm Anna Morrow. I'm from Annapolis.
Alexandra Garcia from Germantown.
Wayne Pratt from Annapolis.
I'm Allison Hayes. I'm from Arnold.
Ty Kandakar, I'm from Annapolis as well.
Josue Ceballos, moved out here from Indianapolis, live in Odenton.
Andrew DiPietro, I'm from Frederick, Maryland.
Joel Anthony, New Freedom, Pennsylvania.
Garrett Trolls from Severna Park.
John Wardell, Edgewater, Maryland. Bradley Boucher, I'm from Baltimore County.
Chris Barnett, Ellicott City.
Aaron Van Schoonoven, living in Annapolis from Buffalo, New York.
I'm Austin Chappelle from Baltimore.
Brian Wright, Prince George's County, Maryland.
Aaron Arrington, Palm Coast, Florida.
Craig Oldershaw, Calvert County, Maryland. Dominic Nolan, Laurel, Maryland.
If everyone could raise their right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland and support the Constitution and laws thereof, and that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment, diligently and faithfully, without partiality or prejudice, execute the office of Fire Department according to the Constitution and laws of this state and the Charter and Code of the City of Annapolis. Congratulations.
Thank you. I just want to say a couple words. Just want to clarify one thing. 12 of the firefighters here are hired under SAFER. And SAFER is a staffing for adequate fire and emergency response. And it's a federal grant that was started, and this is very appropriate we do this today, because it was started after the September 11th terrorist attacks. In 2001, they established a SAFER grant. 16 years later, it's still going strong. So these 12 firefighters are from the SAFER grant. The other 6 are actually retirees. When the mayor said 18, I seen Bruce have chest pains. He thought I did a fast one on him. I could see it in his face. But this is great for the department. It puts our ladder truck back in service and improves our staffing. And I want to thank Lieutenant Wayne Freder, Firefighter Dave McGill. In the back of the room is Captain Scott Sabota. They're all from our training academy. They were involved in the training of these folks. Spent a lot of time, a lot of hours doing it. I thank you guys for what you did. I appreciate it. I also wanted to point out we're very proud of our diversity in the Annapolis Fire Department. We are about 33% diverse when you factor in our female members, and I put that up against any fire department in this country. If you look along this group, you'll see we're a very diverse department. We're very proud of that fact. So, the last thing I want to say, I want to thank Mayor Panelides and all the members of the council. I know you can't see them back there, but they've been very supportive of public safety and of the fire service. And we can't do what we do unless we have their support. So I thank all you for all your input and support. Thank you very much.
Buffalo. Medina. Welcome aboard.
Madam City Attorney, would you please present our next item?
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is petitions, reports, and communications, beginning with reports by committee.
Is there any council person that would like to present a report? Alderman Pan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Public Safety Committee will be meeting on Thursday.
I really want to give the report for the Public Safety Committee.
At Thursday here in council chambers at 6:30. We will immediately follow the economic matters. Wait a minute, I got that all screwed up. I really got, you can tell I haven't been here in a while. The Economic Matters Committee will have a meeting at 6:30 here in council chambers immediately following the Public Safety Committee meeting, which starts at 5 o'clock. The Economic Matters Committee will be dealing with legislative matters. I believe there are some appointments that we will be reviewing. The meeting is open to the public, and I would invite any member of the public that has an interest in what we are covering to appear and be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Budge.
Yes, the Transportation Committee last met on July 18th. We've subsequently had a council meeting and disposed of legislation that was before the committee back then. Our next meeting of the committee will be next week on September 20th. That's moved from our normal Tuesday date because the primaries are being held here in the council chambers. That will be at 6:30 p.m.
Thank you. Alderwoman Finlayson.
Yes, I'll give the public safety report now. Thank you. The Public Safety Committee met on July 17th at 5 o'clock. We took up 01317, which is parking enforcement and rulemaking responsibilities, gave it a favorable recommendation. We had a report from our risk analyst, Ms. O'Brien, who talked about the report that will be, I guess, delivered pretty soon on what things we should be doing differently in order to save money. She's been analyzing all of the departments and the savings that we should be reaping from those departments. We had a report on the Safe Streets program from Chief Stokes and Deputy Chief Simmons. To date, 190 citizens have walked into a county fire station to receive help for addiction. In the city, and as of today, we had one more today, we have helped 22 citizens who have walked in off the street and sought addiction services. So that's pretty commendable in the last, I guess, 5 months since we've had the program. We also had a report on the governor's opiate grant, which was awarded to the city in Anne Arundel County. Deputy Chief Simmons and Chief Stokes are both members of that team, as well as the mayor. Captain Seidel gave a report on the potential opening of Crownsville Hospital to treat opiate addiction problems. And then lastly, we heard from Captain Seidel and Corporal Truitt on recommendations that have been made to our Annapolis Police Department. Our next meeting is September 14th at 5 p.m. here in council chambers. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Arnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rules and City Government last met on July 11th, where we took up legislation to create an audit committee and also changes to the moderately priced dwelling units. We'll meet again tomorrow on the 12th at 4 o'clock in these chambers.
Alderman Kirby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Housing, Human Welfare, and the Housing and Community Development Committee last met on July 31st. July 18th, I'm sorry, where we did take up 2 pieces of legislation, moderate price dwelling unit amendments, and was recommended favorably to the full council and voted on at subsequent meeting, as well as ID 267-17, a deed for 40 Clay Street, was presented as well. Our next meeting will be on September 20th at 7:30 in these chambers. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Madam City Attorney?
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is comments by the general public.
During comments by the general public, you can speak to us this evening for anything that is not already scheduled for a public hearing. So if you came here this evening to talk about the Clean Energy Loan Program, the residential parking permit, the Market House tenant lease extension, or the Certificate of Public Facilities, those will be immediately following this one. The first three people signed up to speak: Kevin Sullivan, Mary Brio, and Bill Kardash. I'm sorry, Robert Eads was first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Should I start over? Mr. Mayor, I'd like to congratulate you for being youngest mayor to win the city election. Although I don't know whether it was political favors or whatever, it seemed that when you took office, your changing in jobs had to do with a lot of figureheads to leave their positions or their jobs that were African American, which struck our community very hard. We took that to heart. There's been a lot of decisions that came through you that representatives asked me to let you know we just didn't approve of. I got her here tonight. Do you remember the night you told me to sit down and shut up in front of this young lady standing here?
No, I don't, because those words never came out of my mouth, Mr. Eads.
Well,
and luckily for us, all the meetings are televised publicly, so you can go back and watch it.
I don't have
but
to
if you
go
want to
back
keep
and watch
spreading,
it. I can tell you it was the night that the group was here for Silver Springs, but that's not an argument. Not here to argue. See, that's the point I'm trying to make. I've reached out to your uncle, to your dad, that when I come here to speak, it's not personal. I have no hard feelings against you. It was the job, and it always seemed like you took it personally. So tonight I'm just simply here to voice my opinion, because this young lady had to see her father stand up as a man and not be told to sit down by another man who's younger than her older brother. Mr. Payon, kudos to you for the work you've done over in my community and continue to do, and your face continue to show. Mr. Budge, when I came to you and talked about situations as a cab driver representative, you never promised anything, but you said you would see what you could do, and you've done some things. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, except for one time, and that was when you told me I didn't mean to get, we're going to put cab stands down around New. That was in May. We missed the whole summer still with only 2 cab stands in the whole city of Annapolis. Any other time other than that, you've never even had the dignity to tell me, I'll look into that, Mr. Eads. Thank you. You always just pass me off. It's election time. Ms. Finlayson, I got your message today. I got it. And there's no hard feelings. There's no hard feelings as you, Mr. Mayor, because when I was sick, you sent me a get well card, and it was signed by your hand. It wasn't one of those. I took all of that to heart. For each and every one of y'all that sent out to me and reached out to me, thank you. And I want y'all to understand, when I come here, it's not personal. Ms. Finlayson, it's not personal. I just feel as though there's a change that needs to be made. This young lady lives right around the corner from the Stanton Center. She knows how to get there, but I don't feel free to send my child there because the safety issue in my community. There's been no change. Each and every one of y'all know for the last 4 years, I've come here and I've argued and I've screamed and I've said, and there's been no changes about the safety in my community, about the safety for my child. So it's not personal. I just think that maybe somebody else could bring a different taste or a different flavor to what's needed. And that's for any and each and every one of y'all up here. I hope y'all all do good jobs in y'all wards if you win back. I just want to stand here today at this opportunity to voice my opinion and say thank you for the jobs that you have done. You may not please me, but someone else you probably give you great kudos. But it's not personal, it's just my experiences. And I've been coming to this city council for the last how many years crying and screaming about issues in my community. Mr. Mayor, I know through the people that you've put on the Housing Authority Committee that
Mr. Eads, your time is up.
Okay, you're about to sell the Housing Authority.
That's not true, and your time is up.
We'll see
Mr.
when
Eads,
the
we're going to have to
election
move on to the next person. Thank
yes,
you.
I'm very sorry. My opinion has got across. Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Kevin Sullivan, if you could please come up. And just for the record, we're not planning on selling any of the Housing Authority properties. The city actually doesn't have control over that. And as it is political season, I know Mr. Reed's leaving, but he could have mentioned at the beginning that he's being paid by one of the other mayoral candidates. So I find it timely that he decided to come by. Mr. Sullivan? Mr. Eads, please sit down. Mr. Eads, your time is done.
No, you have to.
No, Mr. Eads.
Put that to me.
Mr.
Put that
Eads.
question to me. You're not
Mr.
gonna
Eads,
sit up here and
your
say that
time
I'm
is done.
being
You had 5 minutes.
No,
In
you
fact,
made a
you
statement.
may have had more.
You had a statement now. I'm going to make the other statement behind that.
You're disrupting this chambers.
Oh, okay,
and the
call
meeting.
the police. But you're not going to accuse me of accepting money and that I'm taking for the other candidate because I choose to go for somebody else. Did you not come to me?
Let me ask
and
a
offer
question.
me money
Are
at
you,
the parade?
I asked you a long time ago if you'd help on the campaign. You said no, but you are being
But
paid
at the
by another
parade,
candidate.
what did you say at the parade?
I said, come on, Rob, we've known each other for a long
No,
time.
you said you would pay me to come over to you. Just tell the whole truth. I wasn't going to go that low. And I don't mean to disrupt this meeting, but you're not going to sit up and say I'm being paid because I choose to work on somebody else's campaign. Thank you. You offered me money. You offered me money.
I asked to help, and you said we get paid to help. I pay a lot of people on the campaign. Anyway. Mr. Sullivan? Yeah, tough act to follow.
I was just going to say, Robert's a tough act to follow, man.
Come on, Kevin, I want to hear
TV star. My name's Kevin Sullivan. I live at 7 Cumberland Court here in Annapolis, Maryland. I want to just ask Ms. Finlayson and Mr. Payon if they ever got a response to the motion that you guys put in place for me to get an answer the last time I was here, because I never got any answer from anybody about a thing that I've been working on forever, except from our law department that says it's my fault that a corporation from California came and built stuff out of code. It's my fault because I didn't go through administrative processes. I've met with every mayor since Moyer. I've met with this administration 5 times, the last one 8 times. I met with men and women that are in this room right now and talked to those people. So I didn't go alone. So I can't make the administrative people do their job. But I can tell you, we have some difficulties in our little experiment of self-government here in Annapolis. We need to rethink, I believe, the HPC and how it operates. And some of the offices in this building we need to reevaluate the people that hold those offices. I left, I gave the clerk some documentation, gave it to my alderman, who I've never met or called, even though I've been here 4 times in front of him. Never got in touch with me. Where does a man from Ward 1 go to when he has an honest complaint or an honest issue? Where do you go? Read this. No documentation. A phantom inspector. Mr. Payon, you're a state's attorney. This was asked for under X. This was asked for under the Maryland Information Act. Okay? This was a formal request that I had. The thing that they gave us back, it's unbelievable from the law offices. It's my fault. A phantom inspector. No documentation. 0. This is not the first time I've asked for this. Nevin Young asked for it 10 years ago. Nevin Young, isn't that a small world? And he didn't pay me to come up here. He doesn't even know I'm here. I need your help. I want to be treated like you guys are. That's how I want to be treated. I expect you to get back to me and tell me what you're going to do about this. Ms. Finlayson, thank you. You're far from my neighborhood. Not far, but you're out of my neighborhood. And I talked to a bunch of aldermen about this. Some of them are still on this committee, on your council here. Thank you for bringing it up, and thank you, Mr. Payon, for seconding it. I appreciated it. But that's 3 years ago now. It's incredible.
May I?
Alderwoman Finlayson,
Mr.
please.
Sullivan, all I can say at this point is that we will have, between Alderman Payon and Alderman Budge and myself, we will ask the law department to follow up and bring back to us a report on the status of your complaint. It has been a long time, and since we hadn't heard anything, we kind of assumed, and we know what that means, that things were
4 lawsuits while they were
taken care of.
passing administrative decisions and after the fact approvals and putting things in front of the HPC for after the fact approvals under the present leadership and the recent past. A PhD in political science, from what I understand. Doesn't understand transparency, never came in front of the HPC, this California corporation, and built everything out of code and got after the fact approval 17 times while I was defending myself for $4 million lawsuits. Kind of nervy. I don't have $4 million to give to somebody. Thank you. I want to thank everybody.
Thank
Help
you.
me out, will you? I know you don't want it to be this way. I know you don't.
Thank you.
We
The
need
next
to get-
speakers are Mary Brio and Christina Fieldler. If everyone could state their name and address for the record, please.
It's Mary Byro, but Brio happens a lot. Thank you. Hi, thank you all for serving. I'm glad I'm a waitress and I don't have your job because people are real nasty to you guys a lot. And I think you get blamed for a lot of things that you're not necessarily responsible for. I couldn't do what you do. I'm a pretty good waitress, though. I came to this wonderful town 25 years ago. I left the Florida Keys, and I came here pretty broken. A lot of people helped me put my life together. Some of them were pastors at churches, and I have a debt of gratitude to the people in Annapolis. I think our community needs to do a lot more grassroots work to make changes. I think we expect way too much of officials, and in trying to be the change that I'd like to see, I've been working on that a little bit in places like Newtown 20, just a little bit. It's growing very slowly, and I've been very delayed in giving back to this wonderful community, but better late than never. I want to thank Alderwoman Rhonda Pindell-Charles. I think you rock. I think you're amazing. I thank you so much for your accessibility, and I'm sure you haven't I'm sure you've made some mistakes, but I just really admire you, and I'm grateful that you communicate when I have issues I'm concerned about. You seem to work tirelessly for this community, and I want to thank you for that. I don't know most of you, but I just want to say I think we need to do more grassroots work in the community, and there's a lot of many steps we can take to make a difference in people's lives in Newtown 20, especially in places like that where there's just, a lot bigger need than a lot of us just don't understand it. I understand this much. It's not much, but it's a start. And I will continue to pray for the council, and I thank you for what you do. I'm going to keep trying to get more help to do some advocacy and work in these communities. They need help. They need help. They need help. And it matters. Even if you just help one kid or one older person, it really matters. Or one homeless person, it really matters. It shouldn't matter that my amazing father he was a great father, but he was briefly homeless in his life. That shouldn't matter to what I do, but I guess it does, I guess it does. So I have a special place for homeless people, and so I've started to do a little bit of advocacy for homeless people, and there's a lot people don't understand about what homeless people go through. So I'm going to be sharing more of that information to the community in the coming weeks. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Thank you. My address here? Really? I live at 280 Hilltop Lane, Unit J. Don't send me, don't knock on my door and, solicit me for anything. Thank you.
The final speaker this evening, Bill Kardash. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. No. Yes, please. Christina, yes, absolutely. Sorry.
Hi. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Christina Fiedler. I reside at 189 Acton Road, Ward 1 in Annapolis. I'm representing tonight the Chesapeake Children's Museum. I'm going to refer to it as CCM from here on. It is a nonprofit organization, and Debbie Wood, the executive director, could not be here this evening. Just a little background history. The CCM received a $10,000 grant from the National Endowment for the Arts to sponsor a variety of events to promote literacy and cultural understanding throughout our city and county in celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month. The kickoff event, named La Fiesta Grande, and I have some flyers that didn't completely get washed out by my non-existent ink. It will be happening this Saturday, September 16, from 4 to 8 p.m. on the grounds of the Weems Whalen Memorial Athletic Fields behind the Maryland Hall and Bates Middle School. The purpose of this event is to bring together Hispanic and non-Hispanic community members for a joyful celebration. It is a city and community event featuring demonstration soccer games, Brazilian dancing with live music, arts and crafts and piñatas for the children, food vendors from local Hispanic restaurants, free books written in both Spanish and English, and for the grand finale, fireworks at 7:45 p.m. It is in regard to the fireworks display that I'm here to make this appeal for your consideration. The CCM is a nonprofit organization with a 25-year history in the city. We are requesting a waiver of the $1,005 cost to the city for the 2 firefighters required to be present during the fireworks that evening. There will already be a fire truck there with 2 fire officials, 2 firefighters, and we just are hoping that the onus of that $1,005 will not come back to CCM. I believe that's it. I think, Mr. Budge, you have some information on this, perhaps?
Mr. Andrews, did you approve that waiver?
I'm sorry, which waiver is it?
The waiver, I'll just repeat it. The CCM is a nonprofit organization with a 25-year history in the city, and we are requesting a waiver of the $1,005 cost to the city. I'm just standing in for Debbie Wood, so I'm not quite sure of the sequence of this. for the 2 firefighters required to be present during the fireworks that evening. It's my understanding that there will be 2 firefighters already with the truck, and that the 2 additional firefighters are really not necessary I don't know all the hierarchy of it, but
It's the first time hearing of that. I've not approved any waivers.
We'll take it up. Say again?
This is the first time hearing of this, so.
Okay. Chief Stokes sent you a memo about it sometime back, but we'll follow up after this meeting.
I'm sorry, I don't recall it.
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Kardash?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Bill Kardash, and I reside at 1 Acton Place in Ward 1. I'm here tonight to speak as Chairman of the Board of Trustees of Historic Annapolis, the city's leading nonprofit preservation organization founded in 1952. For those here tonight in council chambers and those watching this evening's meeting from home, I want to distinguish Historic Annapolis from the city's Historic Preservation Commission. Many people regularly confuse the HPC with Historic Annapolis. Our financial support comes from grants, charitable donations, and special events. For clarity, we are not affiliated with the city government. We don't rule on architectural plans. That is the jurisdiction of the HPC, and as it relates to the city's Historic Preservation Division and the Department of Planning and Zoning. However, HA's role is broad. It focuses on preservation, education, and advocacy. An important component of our role is the very close working relationship we have with the state of Maryland, and in particular, the Maryland Historic Trust. This relationship has lasted 65 years and has allowed Historic Annapolis, in cooperation with the state of Maryland, to protect numerous historic properties, as well as allow Historic Annapolis to manage 11 properties throughout the historic district on behalf of the state of Maryland. The properties we manage are as diverse as the William Pica House and Garden on Prince George Street, the Hog's Head on Pinckney Street, the Oyster Bar portion of McGarvey's Saloon, the Customs Warehouse at 77 Main Street, currently occupied by Capital T's, and most recently the James Bryce House on East Street that is undergoing a multi-year, multi-million-dollar restoration and renovation. Each of these properties is irreplaceable and is just a small portion of the historic preservation fabric we, as residents, enjoy on a daily basis and visitors are drawn to year-round. A few years ago, curiously, during another discussion about the future of the Market House, Mayor Cohen's administration commissioned a study to determine if the Market House was an economic engine of the city. When the report was finally delivered during a council meeting, the consultants reported the city had only 2 economic engines, and the Market House wasn't one of them. The 2 were the U.S. Naval Academy and historic preservation. Yes, historic preservation matters, and we're lucky it does. I provide this history and relationship because Historic Annapolis is keenly interested in the future of the Market House. As you may be aware, the current Market House is the 8th such structure built and occupied, and it has been at the same location since 1858 and renovated numerous times, most recently in 2012. As you evaluate your plans for selecting a new tenant, Historic Annapolis is willing to assist the city in any way possible. Our professional staff, our volunteers, our supporters and donors, and especially our very close working relationship with the state of Maryland would be an invaluable source of information and research in establishing a, quote, market house that is consistent with the historic perspective of this iconic property. I also want to point out that Historic Annapolis is not endorsing any single bidder's proposal. We do believe, however, that none of the bidders have adequately addressed the original intent of the RFP, that is to establish a market. For the most part, all proposals are focused on a predominantly restaurant format with some sale of food for off-premises consumption. With such an iconic location, the RFP process, properly managed and advertised, should have cast a much wider net and generated scores of bidders. Instead, we got 4, with 3 surviving. We hope this council will hit the pause button and make whatever adjustments are necessary to expand the list of bidders, including those who have already responded, and bring to the residents of Annapolis a true market house that serves the needs of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Good evening, Janet Norman, 787 Annapolis Neck Road, Ward 7. I'd like the record to note that I'm a reluctant witness tonight. I would much rather be at the lovely Pitt Moyer Rec Center that I had to depart, or home having dinner with my family. And I know that many of you might feel the same on some evenings. So I really appreciate your service and long hours for the citizens of our town. And thank you for those who are rotating off the council. Thank you very much for all you've done for us. We really do appreciate that. I want to revisit something I brought up 3 to 4 years ago when I came to testimony, that we have a lovely jewel of property in the City Waterworks Park. And yet, still, 3 to 4 years after my original testimony, it costs more to get in the City of Waterworks Park property than the entire 85 million acres of the National Park Service. I think the permit system is a failure, and it's just keeping people from using the Waterworks Park. I've had the benefit of being sent to various places in the country to learn about connecting people with nature, and gone to Atlanta and seen their Beltline, and Chicago and many other cities around the country are finding ways to connect people with nature. We have a great opportunity to do that. I think the excuse that the property is ecologically sensitive is not biologically valid. As Anne Arundel County has shown us, the phenomenal Bacon Ridge Natural Area, which I encourage all of you to get out to, which is open 24/7, it has been a model of how people are using our parks and natural areas to their benefit. Crownsville has much higher slopes, much more erodible soils. It's been designed well, and it's being loved by the citizens of the county. And that can happen at Waterworks Park if we remove the barriers and remove the permitting. If you look in your own Park and Rec's brochure, it doesn't even tell you what the fees are for getting in there. It doesn't tell you it's $10 a month, $120 a year to get in that 43-acre property. So please, while you have some time on the council left, if you can look into that, making that change, that would be great. The other thing I wanted to express to you was the need to modernize our voting information system. 4 years ago, I came to the council and told them that the polling place lookup was a 1,400-page PDF with 900 pages blank, and that was how you found where your polling location was for your street. Well, today, 4 years later, it's a 507-page PDF. The 900 blank pages have been taken out, but that's all that's been done. And it wasn't until I asked about it that it was put on the city website. So we all need to do better to try and get the word out and make voting more accessible. I'm not satisfied that 14 to 49% voter participation with an average of 32% participation is acceptable for our city. We can do much better. And if you all help provide the information, many of us can help distribute it to the high school, to the 3,000 people on Annapolis Moms Group, to Eastport neighborhood. We can get the information out if you put it up there. But to not have a voter address lookup on the homepage of the city of Annapolis, that's inexcusable. The 507-page PDF took 3 minutes and 14 seconds to load on my desktop computer. How well do you think it's going to load on someone's phone? And this is what most people use to access information nowadays. My laptop was broken. I've been using this pretty exclusively. This is unexcusable that we are 4 years later, after a debacle of missed absentee ballots and tape and everything else. I came and testified to the city's election review board, and I feel it did not do anything that I can see substantially. So many of you who are parents on this council can remember the fog you were in for the couple months after the birth of your child. My cousin enjoyed taking a 2-month-old baby, 2 months after birth, to 3 different polling locations to be able to find her polling location and vote. They had bought a house, and it was just, that's not how we treat our citizens who want to participate and bring in new citizens to participate. Just look around. Is anyone who's not paid to be here under 35? Not many people. How are we reaching the younger generation and getting them to be citizens? Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Seeing no movement, I declare comments by the general public closed. Madam City Attorney.
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is an update from the mayor.
We had a busy month as the council wasn't in session in August, so I'll bring everyone up to date. On August the 1st, we had National Night Out, which is to build trust within the communities. We've done this for many years, but the great thing is we expanded it to 5 different locations. We have police officers at each of them. So we had it at Adams Park, Annapolis Gardens, Chambers Park, the Annapolis Walk Community Center, and Truxton Park Pump House. It was a wonderful time. Encourage everyone to come out next year for National Night Out. We also had several new businesses opening in Annapolis. We had Cindy Lou Who Boutique on West Street, as well as the Chop Shop Barber Lounge. It's always great to see new businesses coming and opening and expanding in Annapolis. Our fire department does a great job with the Fill the Boot campaign. Many of you see them out there holding the boot to raise money for muscular dystrophy. And this year, they raised $14,737. In addition, St. Luke's had a groundbreaking on their stream restoration projects. One of the things we've seen over time is government can't do it all. We can't fix all the problems in the environment. So we have to reach out to educational groups, we have to reach out to religious institutions, the business community, to residents. And St. Luke's Church has one of the best stream water restoration projects out there. I was happy to be there and break ground for part of it. In addition, many people remember the tragic events that happened in Charlottesville. I immediately talked with the police chief and called in a meeting of public safety officials. We had representatives from the city, the county, the state of Maryland, the Naval Academy. They all came together to talk about what we would do if a situation like that happened. Now, these events happen on a regular basis, but we wanted to have a refresher course. As many people know, we probably have more protests in Annapolis than anywhere else in the state. 2 important events that are coming up this week. One's on the opioid heroin epidemic that's going around. We're having a Breaking the Silence workshop, and that's going to be this Wednesday, 8:30 to noon at the Byzantium on Riva Road. I encourage everyone to come out. There's been a number of public information sessions all over the county, and we're teaming up to do that. Another thing that we're doing is the city hosts a number of job fairs. We've done this for the Solar Energy Park. We did it for Maryland Live Casino to help them. We did a regular one. But something important to me was a Second Chance Job Fair. I'm fortunate enough to be appointed by the governor to serve on the Workforce Development Board. And I'm on the Cybersecurity Task Force, a little bit to do with my background. But what we've seen is there's a lack of sometimes compassion for people that have a record, people that need a second chance. There's over 60 million Americans that have had something on their record before. So the city's hosting this job fair on September the 14th at the Pitt Moyer Rec Center. The city's opening up opportunities for people, allowing some of the jobs in public works to be open. They did this program in the past, maybe about a decade ago. People come and get a job for 6 months. They get work reference, they get paid, they have work history. It's a great project. We have a number of private businesses coming in as well. So if you know somebody that's looking for a second chance to turn their life around again, September the 14th at the Pitt Moyer Rec Center, please invite people to come down. That includes my update from the mayor.
Thank you. I have a question as far as updates. We got over the August recess information from the city manager about a 4.5% rate increase for water and sewer, and it was initially indicated that that increase would start on July 1, and then we got later information that we would get that it would be delayed implementation. I'm still not clear on why the water rate increase isn't getting started right away, and by how much revenue the city is losing by not implementing it on July 1.
I have to ask the city manager that question. Mr. Andrews?
Yes, sir. We did not receive the rate study until August the 17th, if my memory serves. And we looked very seriously at whether or not we could apply a retroactive rate increase to July 1st, and it became very evident very quickly that to do that would be an absolute nightmare. There have been 161 property transfers, for example, between July 1st and August the 15th. 17th, when we got the rate increase. We would have to go back to all the closing attorneys and make adjustments. We would have to modify the database in our MIT system. It is virtually an impossible task to go back and apply a retroactive 6 weeks after the fact. The problem is we would be giving up about 0.5% of what we take in terms of
What is that in dollars?
About $80,000.
I'm sorry.
$80,000.
$80,000.
It would take more than that to go back and make those adjustments and to deal with the database changes we would have to make. I'll let Bruce expand on that if he.
So when is the rate increase going to take effect?
On the 17th of August.
17th of August. So notices will go out for that.
Well, remember now there's cycles, billing
Right.
cycles. Okay.
Right.
So the first billing cycle is the only cycle that missed the initial increase. We're about 5,000 customers. more or less.
The complications you mentioned are certainly real, but it's hard to imagine, if I heard you right, that the cost of that would exceed the $80,000 in lost revenue.
I believe that is true, yes. Especially if we have to manipulate the database and that goes in error. To fix that is insurmountable.
Could we get some details so I can better understand
I
how the
think
$80,000
I'm actually
the cost
preparing,
would...
I'm actually preparing that answer for you now.
What's that?
I'm actually preparing that answer for you now.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Madam City Attorney?
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is approval of the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar include journals of proceedings, regular meeting minutes, and special meeting minutes. On first reader, we have O4417, exempt service economic development manager, referred to Finance Committee and the Rules and City Government Committee. O4517, garbage and refuse collection at food handling establishments, referred to Housing and Human Welfare Committee and the Rules and City Government Committee. O4617, temporary Class C alcoholic beverage licensed theaters, referred to the Alcoholic Beverage Control Board, Economic Matters Committee, and the Finance Committee. R2617, Community Development Block Grant Program 2017, amended Citizen Participation Plan, referred to a public hearing. R2717, Hate-Free Zone. R3017, amendment to the FY 2018 Capital Improvement Budget and Capital Improvement Program, referred to Financial Advisory Commission and the Finance Committee. R3117, proposed amendment to FY 2018 fee schedules for the temporary special Class C alcoholic beverage license fee, referred to Alcoholic Beverage Control Board, Economic Matters Committee, and the Finance Committee. R3217, City of Annapolis Investment Policy, referred to the Financial Advisory Commission and the Finance Committee. And then on second reader, we have R2517, Nonprofit Vendors During Fall Boat Shows 2017.
Is there any objection to the consent calendar? Alderman Littman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like R2717 to come off consent calendar, please.
Anyone else? Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended? Madam City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mayor Panley?
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Littman?
Aye.
Alderman Kirby?
Aye.
Alderman Pfeiffer?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
Alderman Budge?
Aye.
Alderman Payon?
Aye.
Alderwoman Pendel Charles?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Madam City Attorney, would you please present our next item?
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is public hearings, beginning with ordinance O3917, Clean Energy Loan Program and Property Tax Surcharge.
Nobody was signed up in advance to speak. If you would like to address the council, now is your opportunity. Seeing no motion, I declare the public hearing on O3917 closed. Madam City Attorney.
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is public hearing for ordinance O4017, residential parking permit amendments.
One person was signed up to speak, and that's Carl Larkin.
Mayor and City Council members, I'm Carl Larkin. I live at 154 Prince George Street. Representing the Ward 1 Residents Association, Mr. Larry Clausen and I met with SP Plus, the enforcement contractor, asking that he continue the use of the parking stickers that have been in place for a number of years. The stickers provide residents with the means of determining whether SP Plus is providing too little or too much enforcement in the various residential districts. Alderman Budge participated in the meeting, and we're pleased that he has put forward this legislation, and we ask that you vote in support of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Seeing no movement, I declare the public hearing closed. Madam City Attorney.
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is public hearing for ordinance O4117, Market House tenant lease extension.
The first three people signed up to speak: Carl Larkin, Michael Farmer, and Carolyn Marquise. Or Marquis, apologize.
Again, Mayor and Councilman, my name is Carl Larkin. I live at 154 Prince George Street. I want to speak on behalf of encouraging you to vote in support of Ordinance 4117. What we have now shows clearly what happens when you rush a complemented procurement process. The RFP was rushed out without sufficient review or community input and resulted in the requirement for a clarification after the bids had already been submitted. After bids were received and the mistakes identified. And for whatever reason, only one of the bidders has responded to the clarifications. I enthusiastically support and encourage the reinvigoration of the Market House with the new and innovative ideas. However, to truly achieve this, the city needs to start again with a more deliberate and structured procurement process, sufficiently reviewed by all interested parties. Yes, the timing of existing bidders' plans will be delayed, but their work to date will not have been lost if they wish to continue with the experienced group of bidders that we have. Under the clear vision of what is being requested by the city and how selection, and equally important, how the selection process will be made. Again, in closing, I ask that you support this O4117. Thank you very much.
Last time I was too tall for the microphone. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Councilman, thank you for hearing us. I'm Mike Farmer, a resident of Ward 1. I live at 142 Prince George Street, 1 block from the Market House. I'm here talking about the extension. I'm also president of the Ward 1 Residents Association. Since moving here in 2001, I've been through now 3 cycles of elected leadership regarding the Market House. My objective is getting to yes. A win-win-win for Annapolis. Ward 1 has, over the last few months, provided input to the city elected leadership regarding the process, the inadequacy of the RFP, the failure of respondents to address key elements of the RFP, and most recently, a legal and contractually sound steps for the City Council following the meeting on July 31st. Our attempts to provide suggestions and analysis from years of contracting experience were largely dismissed until the bids were in. Ward 1 residents are of many minds on the Market House. There are the needs of the market are certainly on the minds of downtown residents. There is no market. The last real one, Rookies, was killed by the city not recognizing or accommodating their parking needs, even very modest ones, to continue their viability. They quit. The needs and opinions of residents across the ward vary widely. I'm heartened by the downtown businesses coming online to register their views about the financial inequity inherent in the current RFP and the need or not for another drinking establishment downtown in their midst. There is additionally a view among some that the construct of a market at the Market House is no longer viable, and that a dining establishment might be. But of course, that would require a change, or as so frequent in Annapolis, a development, an exception to the code. Using the bid and proposal process to change code is unthinkable. I'm likewise heartened by the appearance of the ordinance to extend the lease for the current Market House. We have an option. What's been absent in the process is an attempt on the part of the elected government to find consensus among those most affected by the Market House way forward, the residents and the proximate businesses. We, the Ward 1 Residents Association, attempted to begin that process last spring by sponsoring a town hall style meeting on that very subject. The process was obviated when the RFP was preemptively issued by the city. As in the last three evolutions of the Market House discussion for the city, and I've been up here testifying of all of them, has ignored the input from the residents, the proximate businesses, setting up once again unnecessary contention. There was no attempt to get to yes in advance. We are happy to restart the town hall process and following up with Mr. Kardash's comments earlier to work with HA in making that happen. Let's not make the twice recurrent mistakes again. As the old saying goes, if you want it bad, that's what you'll get. Now is the time not to saddle the next city council with executing a situation they did not create. Stop the process now, extend the lease, and let the elected officials tackle the substantial effort of getting to yes in the next administration. Thank you very much.
Sir. Sir, can I ask you are you speaking as a private citizen or for the Ward 1 Residents Association? Private citizen?
Both. Well, when I'm speaking for Ward 1 Residents Association, yes. But as I indicated, there is no consensus. I mean, the opinions on what the Market House ought to be for the future are all over the board. It varies a lot by how close you are, whether you can park down there, is there a parking accommodation? There's just lots of elements that fill into it. So yeah, and that's part of the problem is that we haven't had that process. We tried to start that, but we're cut off, basically. And we need to have that process.
Yes, sir.
You'll get support with it? Terrific.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Anybody else?
Mayor and Council, good evening. First of all, I'd like to take David, Carolyn Marquis, 114 West Street, Annapolis, Maryland. We're owners of Chesapeake Brew Pub. We put in a bid for the Market House. First of all, I'd like to take exception to the gentleman from Historic Annapolis that mentioned that none of the proposals met the requirements for a market. Actually, our proposal was not a restaurant, not a bar. It was actually a market selling seafood, produce, local goods, local vendors, local shops, all of that. That being said, the other two proposals, every one of the proposals met the requirements and is great in itself. And quite honestly, any one of the proposals right now is better than what we have right now. And for right now, the ordinance to postpone this for a year, what do you expect to get in a year? Do you think you have more bidders putting in proposals for the RFP? Quite honestly, our proposal to give what the RFP asked for, we actually proposed exactly what the RFP asked for, which is not very lucrative, but it met the requirements. And so delaying it for a year, if you think that you're going to get some more people to put in proposals for something different, unless you change the requirements.
Hi, listen, I understand you guys had a very difficult job with this. I just wanted to let you know that all three of the applicants are here tonight. We've all invested quite a bit of time, money, employing services of experts, doing vast research, and we really don't like having our time wasted. The proposal and the clarification that was given, we weren't notified that a response was even required. There was a lot in the process that really was not clear, like how many work sessions were going to discuss the actual proposal, and when were the notifications, how much notice would you give us business owners to be able to attend those meetings. There were some I didn't even get notice of. The other thing, just to let you know, during the summer season, for many of us business owners, is the worst time to be doing meetings that we are required to come here for. So I hope in the future that you can actually get the RFP nailed down. Some of the solutions I might offer for if you're going to go ahead with this is to, at the beginning of the process, please include your desire for a scorecard that is shared at the start of the process rather than in the middle, so that any comparisons are then legally defensible. I gave case in point. We only were going to have local beer and wine to go, no on-site consumption. That's how we read the RFP requirement. Yet the other two provided for a full-scale alcohol license, including liquor. We were only going to have food to go because we read the RFP as desiring a market. So the other two were calling for restaurants. So I think the RFP needs to be very specific. Another request I would suggest is that you put in a citizen task force that could maybe help you iron what it is the community wants, what it is they need, and then that way you don't have to ask yourself, did I hear from my constituents? Did I hear? You'll already know that because they had a seat at the table. Another thing I would include for that is to have a requirement for a project plan that demonstrates specific timetables and a costing out of each phase. Also, you need to be very specific. This is one thing I would highly recommend as far as the legalities, is be very specific on the non-compliance ramifications if the plan is not followed. These are things that were not part of this RFP process, and I personally was kind of surprised. So, and I know, Mayor, I know at any time you are fully within your rights and your abilities to have canceled this RFP. I totally understand that. And I hope you appreciate the time that all three of us have invested very heavily in trying to improve and help Annapolis get where it needs to be with the Market House. That's really all I have. I just want to let you guys know I'm a little disappointed in the process. I hope that we've probably all learned something from it, and hopefully we'll see you again next year.
The next two speakers, Harvey Blonder and Peter Falat.
Good afternoon. On behalf of Annapolis Oyster Company, I'd like to say that we are in favor of you all making a decision this evening and picking one of the selected offers that have proposed. We have submitted an alternative or an update to our proposal that was submitted this afternoon. I'm not sure if any of you saw that, reviewed that. We are happy to review that with you perhaps at the second part of this hearing. But for the record, we'd like to go down by saying we do not think you should postpone this for a year. We're not in favor of it, and we look forward to you making a selection this evening on the second part of this hearing.
Could you just provide your name and address before you leave?
Peter Follett, 353 Sturton's Lane. Thank you.
Thank you.
Harvey Blonder, 112 Main Street, Annapolis, Maryland. As I've stated to many of you, the alderman, the mayor, before, obviously, what you've been asking for, you never checked the market house from various times. We purchased the Good Life business that went broke. And as you call in your RFP, you wanted vegetables, you wanted breads, you wanted eggs, you wanted groceries. Well, that particular business that went broke had all of the above that you've requested and more. If you went down there, you would have seen it. The reason they went broke is because the residents and other people in the area, as well as tourists, did not purchase their goods. And as a result, they went down. We did not want them to be dark, and we paid them money to take over their shop. Now, I've seen a lot of condescending articles in the newspaper about our family, what we've done. We've done a hell of a lot in Annapolis. We have given to every denomination, every type of person. We have supported criminals, given people second time around chances, drug addicts, and everything else. Has that been forgotten among all of you? Has it really been forgotten what we've done since 1975? Where is the appreciation? Doesn't it exist in this city? Is it all about politics and not about the people that give their life for the city? We're not going anywhere. We've been here a long, long time. We have supported all and no appreciation. That's not too nice. And if the column was reversed and you were in our side, you would feel the same way. We have businessmen. You know, we can vote by having teams of people. We have 1,200 employees approximately. We can bring a team of people. We can fill this city hall up many times if we wanted to. We could have cheering sessions, and we can put up signs. But were we ever given the chance? If the alderman of Ward 1 had come to us and said, we don't like what you're doing. Now remember, what we're doing is what the city described, what the city put down, and what the city drew up and the city designed. We did not. We filled 3 of the places. We now have 6 of them. We have a prescription menu, what to follow, what to sell. It's not our decision. It's the city's decision. Have you all forgotten that? Turn us loose. Let us do what we want. We'll show you the real market. You know, we talk about new market up here with cheering stand. Well, we're old market, okay? And then we can have new market. But how about future market? You want it to be successful? We can make it successful if that's what you want. But untie our hands, work with us, don't go behind our back, be straightforward, and tell us what you want. We can spend the money. We can make it happen. But there's one thing for sure, the difference between future market and new market. We will always be around. We can pay our bills, we got the money, and we got the backbone. So let's not forget that. We have not failed. We've been here where everybody else has failed. And we've been open. We have weathered the storm. We weather floods, we weather snowstorms, and we weather the winter. There's not too many people around here that can do that. So give it away to somebody else and see what the future may bring. But you know what it brings with us. We're here. We've had our family here. We've been in business here since 1979. And we have multiple businesses and a lot of properties along the street. So we're not going anywhere. We have a huge vested interest in Annapolis. And we love Annapolis. We love the market house. I've heard it called fast foods. I've heard it called, you know, we want to get rid of the candy shop and the soda shop and the Nickelodeon shop. What do you want? Just tell us. We can do anything you want. We have the capabilities. But you got to speak to us and you got to communicate. You can't put it out in an RFP and not come to us and tell us what you want. And if you're going to put an RFP for one business, make sure you do it for all businesses that the city controls, because it's not done that way. So let's be on equal playing grounds with everybody. We can do the job you want. We are the best. Nobody's going to ever beat us or our family. Okay, we're number one. Just remember that. And we do want to see the vote go tonight. Thank you.
Alderwoman Pendel Charles.
Mr. Blonder, thank you so much for reminding us.
Thank you, and I appreciate that.
If there's anyone else that would like to speak, now's your opportunity.
My name's Eric Mark Bartson. I'm 380 Carronade Way. And I just wanted to mention too, and Harvey said it very well, but I'm in Annapolis every morning for the past 8 years, and the Market House for half of that time has been a dark building, right? Historic place, beautiful place, lots of memories. It's been a black building. Lights off, nobody there. And I'm convinced that with the people that are there right now, the lights will be on every day. I'm not sure if you gave it to somebody else, that would be the case, because I think that's been tried many times. Thank you.
Good evening. There you go. Anyway, I came from Eastern Market area in the beginning. The thing that I've noticed about the Market House is that it is a place, and it does have food and all that. But when I was at Eastern Market, and we had a big fire, and that was where everybody went to get their vegetables and their fruits in the neighborhood. But it was also an emotional connection. When that fire came, everybody was outside looking to see what happened. It's an historic building. Everybody was devastated. We were lucky enough that the inside burned, but the outside didn't. But the connection was emotional, as well as it's a market, you can get fruits and vegetables. For the past 2 years, I'd love to be able to find a place where I can get garlic in the night. I'm blessed that I have neighbors, and I live in an area that does have neighbors that say, sure, you can have an egg, or you can have garlic, or whatever. But it's more than just, I don't have that, I don't know about all the history. I've read it all, and I've read all the proposals. And these people have done a lot of work. These 3 different people seem to have done a lot of work to make it what we've asked for as part of the reading the RFP and then all the things that have come in the last couple of weeks. And postponing it, I don't really know why that would be, but I do know that I still can't get garlic, or I still don't feel like I meet my friends at Eastern Market. I don't meet my friends at the marketplace. And I also don't meet my friends, well, there are other places I do meet my friends in Annapolis. I want to make sure that what we've asked for is a place where we can get food, and if we can take it out, that's great. If we can eat it there and they have a community feel, that's great. I know that what's there now is not serving the purpose from what I thought I heard everyone talking about. Postponing it a year is the same as we have now. If we put something new in there, hopefully people have been listening to what the people here have talked about over the last couple of times, and also what people all over Annapolis, when they come down with their cars or their bicycles or anything else, have that great emotional connection, as well as finding good food, fresh food available to them. Not another nightclubby type place
all those people, all of that. Dock area is very vibrant. We don't need another one of those, in my opinion, my personal opinion. But I just wanted to say that I'm looking for something that has heart and something that has food, fresh food, that I can get not just on Sunday afternoon. Thank you.
Hello again. Keith Bouchard, 18 Bryce Road. This might be our 5th time together or so, and we chose tonight not to ask a lot of our supporters to come out and our support. You've seen that. You've seen the support. Hopefully that has resonated well. It's resonated with a lot of folks in Annapolis. Newmarket has met all the requirements of the RFP. We've supplied our clarification of all those requirements on the City Council provided spreadsheet. We've completed that spreadsheet for you. We have responded to the clarification memo by the City Attorney, which clarified that all the conditions of the RFP have been met by each of the 3 proposers. So it seems clear that you're able to vote tonight on the proposals that are before you in response to the RFP. In our clarification to the clarification memo, we have addressed a few things and made some modifications. I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of that. And this was the memo that we sent you earlier in the week. Number 1 is we will not seek to make modifications to the exterior of the building. That was made clear in the clarification that that's not allowed, and we would honor that. And we would love to discuss any opportunity to think about that in the future with the entities that responsible, the city, Historic Annapolis, et cetera, to entertain future ideas. But for the time being and for the foreseeable future, no modification to the exterior of the building. We will only seek a beer and wine license. We will, go through the ordinary process. We may or may not get that. We will not seek a spirits license, a liquor license, but only beer and wine. We will not seek a 2 a.m. license. We think we made that clear earlier. Due to the fact that we are not making the modifications to the exterior of the building, or not seek to make them, we will be looking to expand the grocery section of our business to 3 corners of the market instead of the 1 corner that was originally proposed in Iron Rooster. So the expanded parts would be the front corner, we'll call that Middleton Corner. That will be a grocery section with gifts and fresh flowers, etc. The back section will continue to be a grocery section, and that's the Iron Rooster section. That'll have fresh raw meats and produce and things of that nature. And then we'd also be looking to expand the grocery section up by the front, call it the Ego Alley Hopkins Plaza corner, and that'll have dry goods and dry groceries, vinegars, oils, olives, pastas, things like that. All the dry goods that you would normally see in a grocery. So again, we think our model will work. It's the model where we take all of those grocery items and use it in our food preparation that's designed for in-house and take-home use. So we think that that's the model that will work in this size building that it is, and we think that we have the team that'll make it work. Jody Danik's record on West Street, where he's taken an area of town that was sort of set aside and really rejuvenated. We want to do that in City Dock. We think this is the team. We think that if you were to delay tonight, we're not sure what opportunity you're going to have to see proposals like this. Again, we need to go on. We're going to move on. We need to go on to other things. So we're not sure, what you're going to find a year from now. You're going to find local, successful business teams that have done this before, that are eager to do it again and have success, or are you going to get bids from outside and perhaps maybe not so successful? So we're eager to move forward. We're ready to start work tomorrow, literally tomorrow. And Joe Lyon and my wife Michelle unfortunately could not be here because of significant commitments that they could not get out of, and they are ready to work full-time beginning tomorrow on this project. And they, again, are going to be full-time, on-site owner-operators of the Market House, and as well as with Jody Danek. So thank you for your consideration. We look forward to a vote tonight.
Good evening, Mayor, Council Member. My name is Carl Schrapp, 300 Mears Court, Annapolis. I'm currently the manager of the Market House. I've been there almost every day for 5 years. I just want to go out on notice saying that the way you're treating Mr. Blonder, myself, and the way we have taken care of that Market House, being open almost every day except for maybe Christmas and Thanksgiving, I think it's been, and not giving us the right to make the changes that we haven't had the right to do because, as Mr. Blonder conveniently said, we took over the other parts of the Market House that have failed. The smoothie bar, it did have vegetables, it had bread, it had its vitamins, it had groceries. We didn't see anybody there. We didn't see anybody. The Market House is fairly busy when the city is busy. When there's no one in the city, I hate to say it, even the people at Newmarket aren't going to survive because people aren't coming to the market for whatever reason. I've been there, like I said, 5 years. People have come down and asked for lettuce. I sell them lettuce. I see this young lady here most of the time. I see Miss Finlayson here. I see a couple of the other members here. Mr. Kirby's there all the time. People come ask for lettuce or onions. They want to know where to get it. I'll sell it to them. We haven't had the opportunity to set up the Market House the way it should be. Again, we took over and kept the place alive for the city of Annapolis. We hope you guys show us the appreciation that we've shown you. You guys have a good night.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jody Danek from 51 West Street, Annapolis. One of the partners putting in the proposal for Newmarket. Look, we've all been here. We deserve a vote. There should be a vote tonight. All three of the applicants are fully qualified, and they are the best applicants you're going to get. So if there were people lined up to put in a market, you would have Whole Foods down there already. Let's be honest. I mean, if it was a viable thing to have a 100% market down there, the economic marketplace would have already filled that need. So there's not going to be a market down there that lasts. The population of Annapolis just does not support a market in that space. So I welcome, if you do extend the lease, Ward 1 residents to put in their own proposal for a market. Maybe you guys can form a consortium and start selling. And I mean no disrespect, but we've bent over backwards to try to help, to try to fit our economic model into what the city and what the residents say they want. We have about at least 30% of the Market House, maybe even 40 now, is designated towards market goods. Some of them are not fresh, all fresh vegetables and chicken. Some of them are olives and things that won't go bad, and olive oil and pastas. But we really do think that our new market approach will be viable and it will work. And yes, we may need some beer and wine in there to get people in there after 6 o'clock at night. And that's just the reality of the situation. If you go down right now, and I'm sure Harvey will agree, after 6 o'clock at night, how many people are going for happy hour at the Market House? I mean, how many people are actually meeting their friends or meeting people and enjoying the city views in Ego Alley after 5 o'clock at night? It needs to have at least a beer and wine license, and it needs to be able to get out of the food court mentality that it is right now. It's not the Blonders' fault that they're in the situation that they're in right now. The food court mentality is what you guys wanted last time, and so I'm not sure what else you all want. There should be a vote. If we wait another year, I don't think we'll have more than 3 people go for the RFP again. So, and I'm not sure our group can sustain itself. We have, you know, everybody has other things. It's hard to put entrepreneurs together to try and do something like this. And if it wasn't hard, or if it was so profitable, there would be people lining up trying to do it. And you don't have people lining up trying to do it. So I would say, progress, not perfection, and let's have a vote, and let's move on. In 5 years, we can revisit it.
Alderman Pan?
Thank you. Mr. Danik, I know that the original floor plan that I'm looking at here has been modified somewhat, but I'm not seeing anything that is even remotely close to 40%, and what I would consider to be fresh market vegetables. That's what comes to mind, but there are other things, flowers, things like that, that I would normally consider to be part of a market. I mean, you've got one place in the corner, basically, that says fresh.
Now, if you look at the plan, the new plan closely, we've, because of the difficulties with HPC and allowing to open up the market house, we've decided to not fight that battle at this particular time and to use that extra space for market goods. So the corner that is over by Middleton's will be 100% market all the way around in front of the common area bathroom, which isn't really space. We'll have goods and services, and then into the Ego Alley side, which is on the other side with Middleton's, we'll have market, places to pick up to go and prepared foods, and then we'll also have marketable goods on the other side in barrels, cheeses and different things like that. So it is kind of a mix of what Ward 1 residents want and what we think will work. And as Keith talked about, being able to use some of those goods and in the restaurant portion or in the grill portion, the prepared portion, will allow us to just keep recycling that product.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Alderman Arnett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It feels like we're drifting a little bit, so I want to make some general statements to you, but to everyone. This is a public hearing on whether or not the council should consider a proposal to have the capability of extending the current leases should we not be able to come to an agreement. The market house will go dark by the current lease agreement at the end of the year. So that's all that this legislation is talking about. I think it's prudent legislation if we don't come to some other kind of agreement. I keep hearing people say at this meeting and earlier meetings, the council take a vote to make a decision. The decision that the council is in the position to make at this point is whether or not to direct the administration to negotiate with one or more of the bidders. There will not be an award of a lease or anything else tonight or anytime soon. The administration will need to negotiate with one or more of the vendors for a lease. The vendors all have indicated that they want alcoholic beverages. They will need to go to the Alcoholic Beverage Control Board to get that. I think you've helped yourself a lot by not wanting to get into exterior alterations now. That takes one of the three things that hurdles that you had to go over. The proposal that's still in the Annapolis Oyster Company to build the pavilion, an idea that I personally like, will have to go through HPC. Those are all just part of the process. So I think there is a process the council has to follow. It is in code. It can be confusing. I just wanted to sort of sort things out a little bit. This legislation is a precaution to hear from you about whether or not we let the market house go dark at the end of this year if we don't have a new lease in place, which is very unlikely. And that's all it is. We don't even know whether the vendors will accept an extension of their lease, but this is just, the mayor has put this forth so that if we don't get a lease, we would have the option of keeping the market house open. All the dialogue you're giving is going to be relevant to things we're going to be taking up later and in the future, but the process is the council will make a selection of one or more vendors to ask the administration to negotiate a lease with one or more of the vendors. That lease or those leases will come back to the council at some future point for a decision by that council as to which lease they like, if any. That council may say, we don't like any of these proposals, in which case we'll have gone down the road spending some time, but that is the prerogative and the power of the council. So I just wanted to sort of straighten things out here a little bit. This is simply a public hearing on whether or not legislation to allow extension of the lease beyond the end of the year. There'll be another section in this agenda, in business and miscellaneous, where we will continue the dialogue about what we do, what this council does going forward. And I think you know this.
I think everybody started talking about it, so that's why I felt compelled to get up.
Right.
So,
I understand everybody's excited about it.
I would suggest that you extend the lease and you don't charge any rent for the next year, and let Mr. Blonder actually, if he does get it, then let him
That's
actually
okay, as
do
long as you
something.
know that your property taxes will go up on your property. No, I mean, I just wanted to say that because I think...
I mean, if the city does want us to subsidize some of this stuff, it's difficult enough to make a buck. So you guys should, for the next year, I mean, I would be, if it is happening right now, I would be begging the people to stay, because it's gonna be dark for the next couple of years if we don't get it right.
I just wanted to do a little clarification.
Okay.
There'll be more on the Market House later on in the agenda.
I'm gonna go get some dinner and I'll come back at midnight. Thanks.
Don't take too long, because I think we're gonna move through pretty quickly.
Yeah, I hear you. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? I'm sorry you already spoke. But you only allow people one time during the session to speak.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm confused because is the RFP open or closed?
Closed.
It's closed.
Closed. Correct. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward?
Good evening, all. My name is Tom Rikas. I live at 163 Prince George Street, Annapolis, Maryland. I want to just speak very briefly in favor of the legislation to extend the lease of the Market House. The reason we would want to do that was clearly articulated. If necessary, it gives everybody a little bit of breathing room and the opportunity to go and move forward in a reasonable and prudent manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Last call. Anyone else? Seeing no motion, I declare the public hearing on O4117 closed. Madam City Attorney, would you please present our next item?
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is public hearing for ordinance O4217, Certificate of Adequate Public Facilities, timing of certification.
Nobody was signed up in advance to speak. If you'd like to address the council, now is your opportunity. Seeing no movement, I declare the public hearing on O4217 closed. Before we move to the next session of our agenda, we'll take a 10-minute break. If I could have everyone take their seats. The City Council is now back in session. Madam City Attorney, would you please present our next item?
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is business and miscellaneous items, beginning with GA 518, Certified Local Government, Keeping History Above Water.
Is there a motion to approve GA 518? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Madam City Attorney?
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is GA-918, Neighborhood Enhancement Team Initiatives.
Is there a motion to adopt GA 918?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Third. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Madam City Attorney, would you please present the next item?
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is GT 218, Transfer from City Dock Infrastructure CIP to Maintenance Facility CIP.
Is there a motion to approve GT 2-18?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Madam City Attorney, would you please present the next item?
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is ID-257-17, which is the RFP 17-21 lease of the Annapolis Market House at City Dock.
Mr. Andrews?
Mr. Mayor and Council, Alderman Arnett said it very clearly and succinctly about what's before you. What's before you is not a legislative act, it's a procurement act. The legislative act that will be before you is to whether or not to execute or not a lease. The devil is in the details, and those details would be in a lease. So on a procurement item, you have a range of options. You can dismiss any or all of the proposals, or you can authorize the administration to enter into the lease negotiation with one or more of the proposers as you see fit. But again, the actual award under procurement terms doesn't occur until you would act favorably on a lease, which would probably in all likelihood be before the next council, not this council, given the time constraints and the fact that third parties would have to be involved in the process of a lease negotiation, principally the HPC or the ABC board. So that's what is before you. I know there's been some confusion in the media and in testimony we've heard over the last couple of months and weeks, and in the emails we received, but that's the action that you need to consider.
Alderman Budge?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion. Before I do so, I'd like to make a couple of comments, if I may. We are very blessed to have the proposals that have come forth from our community for our market house. The level of care and study and work that have gone into these proposals is tremendous. And they're true expressions coming from members of our community of how much our community cares for each other. The discussions that we had at the last council meeting indicated there's a division of opinion among the members of the council, and we've had a lot of discussions amongst ourselves individually during the last month that we've been on break. And I regret to say that those divisions of opinion haven't changed very much. As I've indicated to my constituents, as I indicated at the last meeting, I think it's important that we move forward with a decision so that we have a path forward for the market house. To that end, I'm going to propose something that is a little different from a normal bidding process that we specified. I move that the Annapolis City Council direct the administration to begin competitive negotiations for a Market House lease with two of the bidders, Newmarket and Annapolis Oyster Company. Pursuant to the city charter, the administration is to bring the proposed leases back to the City Council for approval by ordinance. Further, the leases are to be consistent with Ordinance 1617, Ordinance 1717, and the existing city code. And in addition to that, the City Council declines the marquee proposal. And in addition, that the administration will apprise all the alderpersons of the makeup of the lease negotiating team, which will include 2 members of the City Council. Council members will confer with the administration on terms to include, and among those terms, the Council desires A, a clearly defined business plan that describes the mix of market versus restaurant operations, B, consideration of different rental rates for areas of the market house that will be used as a market versus areas that will be used as a restaurant selling food and beverages that are immediately consumable, and C, consideration of a conditional lease predicated on the bidder receiving the necessary approvals from the Historic Preservation Commission and the Alcoholic Beverage Control Board.
Second.
Right? Discussion? Alderman Pan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could address the city attorney for a moment. Do we have the ability to recommend 2?
Yeah, as part of the RFP package, and I tabbed it, as part of under the instructions and form under the administrative information section, the city reserves the right to negotiate in any manner necessary to best serve the public interest and to make a whole award, multiple awards, a partial award, or no award.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor, if I might reserve a moment or two after hearing other comments if need be. Thank you.
No other discussion? It's been moved and seconded. Did you have a comment, Alderman Arnett?
Well, I want to amplify on the statement that Alderman Budge made during his comments before making the motion, which is that all of us have been receiving a lot of input from constituents, and that's as it should be. That's why we're here. There are conflicting views. I think that we did get 2 really good proposals that showed a lot of vision, and I'm looking forward to the administration getting into negotiations with those bidders. We've already heard, we heard on the 31st of July and again tonight, refinements in the thinking on the part of the bidders, and I think that they've listened to comments that have been made by us and others, and again, that's how the process should work, and that will lead us to a final outcome that will give us a market house that has a reasonable chance for success. And so I strongly endorse the motion made by Alderman Budge.
There's no other discussion? Oh, Alderman Kirby?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So, Alderman Budge, this means that both leases will move, and there is no ranking of any type. They move on to this next step.
That's correct.
They're both number 1.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion? Oh, Alderman Pfeiffer?
Just ask another, and sort of thinking through this. So, and then the general idea would be that if both negotiations were successful, you would basically bring them back and have this dynamic, but if one fell away from whatever reason, or both fell away, you could basically have a sort of a failed search. I mean, that's sort of what we're talking about, basically. Starting both of them at the same time, not one after another, one in any way, right? That's the intent here?
I believe that's correct. Simultaneous competitive bid, which is done in other parts of city government as well. And you've already seen some of that take place with the 2 proposals coming forward. They offer to change the layout, not changing the exterior of the building, offering more fresh fruits and vegetables and other things. So it's a common process, and as Alderman Arnett said at the beginning, this is just to start the negotiation process. It's not to award anything.
So did I hear you say that there are other cases where we have done RFPs that have led to multiple bids on other items that are being negotiated concurrently?
I believe so. City manager said it's a common thing in city government. And I believe we've done in the city as well.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this has been done in the past. I've had experience with it in other jurisdictions, and it's quite common, actually, competitive negotiations. Whether it's been done in the city before, I do not know, not during my term, but perhaps before that.
Thanks.
Alderman Arnett.
And this is the reason why, Mr. Mayor, you put forth the legislation that we had public hearing on today about extending the existing leases, and that is important for two reasons. One, we are not likely to finish this negotiation in time for the administration to bring back one or more leases in an ordinance form, which then has to be introduced at a council meeting, then has to have a public hearing at a succeeding council meeting, and then has to go to council committee, and then has to come back to the council for the vote. After tonight, there are only 3 more meetings of this council. There's no way that we can finish this in this term, so it'll carry over to the next term, and that's why it's a good precaution to have the capability when that comes before the council for a vote for that extension, and I think that's part of what was confusing tonight with the testimony and people not understanding exactly what the process was.
Alderman Pan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm still not completely convinced that any of these proposals answer the RFP in the spirit with which we voted to outline the RFP in April. I know that at least one of the bidders was here that night, and I remember him addressing the council. I don't know that that spirit is carried over in any of these. However, having said that, look, it's not that I was unhappy with any of these proposals by any means. I think they were all well thought out. I'm just not sure they totally answered the RFP. But having said that, I think maybe the way to go at this point is to go ahead with Alderman Budge's proposal. I think that we can ferret out a number of the issues that I have, and you know, whether we get it done by the time we're finished or not, I'm a little bit skeptical, to say the least. I agree. My common sense tells me that it's not likely to happen. But having said that, it would just be a matter of the new council picking up essentially where we left off, if that's the case. And I think, look, I think this is the way to go, simply put, at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Littman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Andrews or Mr. Miller, I guess Mr. Andrews, if this motion passes, can you begin to comment on what you would envision as next steps? What kind of, who would be your negotiating team, and what would be your process used?
Well, that would be the first step, obviously, to define that team and inform you as part of the motion. I think we could do that within a matter of a couple of days. I would ask council, however, to anoint the 2 members that are going to participate from this council. That's a decision you should make, not that I should make. Then it's a matter of the negotiating team meeting, determining what the parameters of the negotiation is going to be along the lines of the motion. Once that's determined, we report back to you and say, here are the items we're going to be covering in the negotiation. Then we set up the sessions. And you've already recognized, or will recognize, that the motion passes, that there are external groups that might be involved. HBC,
say the last part again. There's what?
There may be external groups involved in the determination of whether a lease could be viable or not viable, depending on what the proposers want to do, the HBC and the ABC board. So how that would work into a lease arrangement, we'd have to make that determination. It would be a contingency item, or would we ask those third parties to act first. We would have to make that determination. But I envision bringing back 2 lease proposals to a council, with or without staff recommendation. That would be up to you, or up to the next council, and you would make your choice, or not, as the case may be. You may not like either one of them. That's certainly an option. But that's how I see off the top of my head how we would proceed over the next 3 months.
So assuming the ordinance that would be forthcoming would reflect a lease that would still be contingent on the outside entities like HPC and the liquor board, I get that.
It
Could
might,
could
or-
such an ordinance
Or the alternative would be to seek those approvals before the lease is presented to you. That will extend the time, of course. I mean, that's just the way that would work. But that would be to be determined.
If you were going to come to the council with an ordinance that had a lease contingent, could you get that ordinance to the council in time for this council to consider it?
That's a good question.
So you would not be what I'm suggesting is in a scenario where you're not trying to get those 2 answers first, HPC and the liquor license answered.
Well, yes. To agree, however, that depends on what the proposers want to do. Like you heard this evening, that one of the proposers has modified their proposal to not do external modifications, which might not require HPC. So while those negotiations are taking place, that may become more evident. If either of the proposers want to do beer or wine, that's going to take ABC board. Or anything other than that, it's going to take ABC board approval. That's a relatively shorter process and might be accomplished prior to at least being presented to you.
Have you got the staff and the sufficient time built in for that staff to get this done, assuming that the council and the...
I think if it's just ABC board, I think that could be worked out over the next couple of months. That's a relatively short process.
Thank you.
HPC may be a little bit more complicated.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Alderman Arnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A comment and then a proposed amendment. First of all, at least for me, this motion reflects a decision that I came to based on evaluating the RFPs that were initially proposed. We certainly have heard movement on many of the bidders subsequent to that proposal, and that's kind of an indication of what I would expect to come out of the whole lease negotiation. There'll be a refinement of the proposals. In the interest of time and possibly to help the question that Alderman Lippman was asking, I would offer an amendment to this motion that would name Alderman Budge and Alderwoman Pindell Charles as the 2 members of the council that would be the council negotiating team. So we don't have to spend time sorting that out, and that would answer directly one of the issues raised by the city manager. If the council would approve that amendment, then we have one more thing out of the way and can get right into the negotiation process. So I make that motion to stipulate the 2 council members would be Alderman Budge and Alderwoman Pindell Charles.
Alderman Pan.
Mr. Mayor, I think I think we ought to leave that up to the city manager. I don't think we ought to be that specific. There are implications right now that for all of us, who serve on this, I think any number of people have a background that would be appropriate for this. I don't question that my colleagues are as qualified as anybody else, but I do think that regardless, we owe it to the proposers and most of all to our citizens to come to some type of a vote tonight. And I think I don't want to add anything to what we already have. I think that we owe it to. We need to make a decision. If everybody thought that we had 5 votes for really to do much of anything at this point, I'm not sure we'd be talking about this. This is a very reasonable compromise on the part of a number of people, and I think that it's one I certainly recommend, but I don't think we need to amend anything at this point. And I don't really think it's going to save a ton of time by doing this. Thank you.
In response to my colleague from Ward 2, I heard the city manager say that he would want to know who would be working on the team, and in the interest of time, and certainly all of the emails, no matter who they were favoring as a vendor, were encouraging us to get on with it. And I think shortcutting the process so we don't have to go back and forth, this amendment is offered in the spirit of making it certain who the team would be from the council. They'll be our representatives. We will certainly be able to talk to them, find out what's going on, offer suggestions. I hope we'll be consulted by them also on things that would go into the lease negotiation. So in the spirit of what our constituents have been urging, get on with it, that's why I offered this amendment.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
The ayes have it.
This is, wait a minute, I just voted on the amendment, correct?
The amendment, correct,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
And we're voting for the amendment as a whole. Or not the amendment, the motion as a whole. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Madam City Attorney, would you please present the next item on our agenda?
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is legislative actions on second reader, beginning with Resolution R2116, Catherine Properties Annexation and Public Facilities Agreement Status.
Moves postponement for 180 days.
Well, talking with the city manager, it was actually a motion we were thinking about withdrawing the legislation or voting it down. So I would leave it up to the discretion of the council.
Yeah,
for these
Mr. Mayor, I think, if for no other reason than to basically save the clerk's time to basically push them out so that they die, the easiest thing would be just to move votes on them and just vote them down. I think that's probably the cleanest way to do it, right? We have 3 of them, so.
All right.
Move them all together.
Yes, we'll move all 3 pieces of legislation on the annexation agreement together. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Well, so this is in favor of them, so if you don't want it to pass, say no. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
I thought we were going to join.
We're voting them all down at the
We're
same
voting them
time.
all down at the same time. So we made a motion. Do we want to vote on all of them together?
Right.
So,
I thought we were voting.
Aren't we voting on that motion?
We got ahead of ourselves.
all right, is there a second?
Are we just voting? Can we just vote on doing them together?
Yeah, I believe it was, as when we do amendments within the city council, if there's, you can say, I'd like to take the amendments as a whole. I believe the motion was we would like to take all 3 pieces of legislation as a whole at the same time.
So we do want to take them, we voted down taking them. Okay. We got to take them individually now,
How
correct?
can we reconsider?
Move to reconsider.
All right, let's make this quick. Move to reconsider.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of reconsidering, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Start from the beginning. Is there a motion to consider all 3 of these pieces of legislation at the same time?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Is there a motion to approve all 3 pieces of legislation for the annexation agreement? Say aye.
So moved.
Yes.
Second.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed?
No.
I'll shut down.
And just to clarify, that's R2116, R2316, and R2416 for those still following along.
Right.
Is it, Madam City Attorney, would you please present the next item?
All right, Mr. Mayor, the next item on first reader is R2717, the hate-free zone.
Is there a motion to approve R2717 on first reader?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Alderman Arnett?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have surprisingly gotten a lot of feedback on this, and from all sides of my ward. Some of it is along the lines of this is potentially an abridgment of First Amendment speech rights. I don't know the answer to that. But surprisingly, a lot of it is that it's in balance, that hate isn't the sole province of one side of the political spectrum or the other. And so it feels to me like this might want to get a redraft, something that takes into consideration not only a more generic, but I think more particularly make sure that we're not stepping on First Amendment or other amendments, any amendments in the nature of it. Again, I was quite surprised at the amount of input I got from constituents expressing concerns with this.
Can certainly address that in the future, part of the legislation. Alderman Lippman?
Just want to be clear, we're up to our 2717, right?
That is correct.
Thank you. And we're on discussion stage of that? Thank you. I have a number of concerns about this legislation. So it's surprising how many problems I have just on for a one-page resolution. So in the underlying the purpose stage, this refers to hateful or violent actions. So the violent actions I get, but the hateful actions to me is undefined and very vague. If someone says, "I hate you," is that being hateful? I would think so, but I don't think it's clear. I don't think we want to fall into the trap of saying any hateful words would not be tolerated. The second phrase, "will not be tolerated," I don't know what that means. If someone does something hateful, what are we going to do? Tell them to leave the city? Is that a crime? Is that a civil penalty? So that's not clear at all to me. I think it's very vague. Line 43. So we're going to tell our officials to restrict rallies, marches, and public forums on city property. Well, that's pretty limiting. I would think that if we're going to make this big stand about having these groups not come to the city, that's exactly what we're doing, is that we don't want them to be marching on our city streets. This resolution doesn't even touch that. It's limited to just city property. So I don't understand that restriction. On line 44, talking about, again, restrictions relating to hate and hate matters. Well, that's extremely broad. Who is going to define what hate and hate matters even means? What groups are we talking about? Besides the specifically identified groups, which are obviously groups we don't want to have in this city and feel very strongly about, what about other groups that some people consider hateful groups? Black Lives Matters is a group that elicits a lot of emotions, where some people, not me, considers that group a hate group, and I think there'd be a lot of objection to that conclusion. But clearly, it's not clear at all. What about the groups that hate these hate groups? Are we going to say they can't march? This is such vague legislation. I think it needs to go back to the drawing board. This is not legislation. I'm curious what my other colleagues who are attorneys especially think about this legislation, because until you get to the very end, when you say everything above has to comply with the Constitution, if you don't, I'm sure that was where the attorney language came in and said, this is not constitutional language. We have to say as limited and accepted by the Constitution, by Maryland. It essentially makes everything above it meaningless. And I just don't think that's very smart. So I think this legislation is poorly written. I think it's sloppy. I think that it needs to go back to the drawing board, so I don't think we should be introducing it on first reader and have it go through the process. I think it needs to start from scratch. And lastly, I just want to say, although this legislation is, I think has a lot of defects, I think it's a nice sentiment. As someone who is Jewish and who has relatives affected by some of these groups, I'll assume and trust that these targeted groups disgust me, and I certainly don't want seeing them marching on our streets And so I don't want to be accused of defending these groups, which it couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth. So what I'm trying to say is I certainly support the notion that we need to protect the safety of people in the city, but we have to do it with legislation that is not vague, that is more clear, and has constitutional muster, passes constitutional muster.
Alderman Pan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think my colleagues need to be reminded, but I would point out that this is on first reader. We've had legislation that was in worse shape than this before that we fixed before it came up for a vote, and I don't see how this is any different. I don't necessarily, by the way, I haven't made a study of R2717 yet. It's not lengthy. It won't take me long. I don't necessarily disagree with what you've said, but for now, simply to consider it and have the opportunity to fix it, I think going that route would be much more appropriate given the timeliness of this legislation. And if we need to, other cities have passed this type of thing, and if we need to perhaps review what other cities have done, then so be it, but I don't see any reason to kick this thing out at first reader level. Whether I'll end up voting for it, I may end up totally agreeing with my colleague from Ward 5 when it comes time to vote, but for now, come on, it's first reader, guys. Thank you.
Alderwoman Pendell Charles?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Leonard, being quite brutally honest, do you think this legislation could use some touch-up?
Yeah, I think it could probably get referred to some committees and get further insight and touch-ups.
Do you think it would be so much of an overhaul that it would need to be redone totally? To the point that would almost make this meaningless.
It's only one page, so I feel like if it goes through the committee process, it could probably get the overhaul it needs during that process. We're not talking about a very lengthy, piece of legislation. You are welcome, of course, to do whatever you want, and if you want to kick it back down to my office. However, we always value your input with those matters, and that input is a little easier to get if it's going through committees.
I guess my question is, would it be so much of an overhaul till it wouldn't even look like what it looks like now?
I'm not sure it would go quite that far, no.
50%?
I'm honestly...
I'm just asking.
I'm not sure. We would need to address... I would like to get the input from public safety and the police department, as well as the council members. As Alderman Payon mentioned, other cities have passed similar things, so I don't think it would be a 100% overhaul, but I think you could do a good 20 to 40-ish%.
Okay.
I mean, if you're making me pick percentages.
Yeah, I am. Okay. All right.
Alderman
Thanks.
Arnett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I made my opening comments, it was meant to express actually my surprise at how much comment I got on this. I don't question the motivation. I think none of us like seeing some of the things that have happened around the country. I hate to admit that Alderman Payon is correct. We've had things in worse shape than this, and we've managed to sort it out. I think this is an important piece of legislation. We need to make sure we get it right. And I can remember over the last couple of years, particularly when Mr. Leahy was here, we spent a lot of time talking about amendment rights, various 14th, 1st. I mean, I don't even know how many amendments to the Constitution we have, but I just want to make sure that whatever we end up with, that we're going to be able to stand behind it. We're not going to have a whole bunch of people coming in and going after us because we didn't do it in a constitutional way. Whether we, pass this on first reader, that's fine with me, but I do think there's some things, I think Alderman Littman did point out some things that are ambiguous here that we definitely need to sort out. So,
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Ashley, did I understand you to say that the police department did not You did not confer with them in writing this legislation?
I don't believe, I'm not 100% positive, but I didn't personally speak with the police department as part of this legislation. It got a brief review from myself and Assistant City Attorney Gary Elson, just to sort of add in some of the language that Mr. Lippman indicated, but we don't, general law office policy, at least while I've been charged, is we try not to completely overhaul it. We're just trying to make sure we fit in legal parameters, but no, I mean that when a lot of legislation goes out, we assume that it'll go through committees and get other input at that time, but I don't believe the police have commented on this yet.
I guess it
At
strikes...
least not to my office, at any rate.
I guess it strikes me kind of odd that we would not have run this by the appropriate department head, particularly in this case, the police chief. And so then it becomes our responsibility to fix.
Like I said, it may have been, it just not, my office and the police department didn't talk about it.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Lippman?
Thank you. If this resolution does get passed on first reader, I'd like it to be assigned to the Public Safety Committee so that the police chief can be called in, and to Rules Committee.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, Alderman Kirby?
Yeah. I just wonder why you didn't send it to Housing and Human Welfare?
Please do.
And there lies the problem, because this month we meet on the beginning of the Jewish holiday, and I know you're not going to be there.
Change meeting date. Yeah.
It's been changed because of Election Day.
Just keep changing until you get it right.
Well, I think it's probably not quite that easy, and if you talk to our staff person, she will tell you.
Well, Alderman Lippman is an attorney in his own right, and I'd like to give them the opportunity to look at the legislation in committee, because he's obviously going to be the one driving the bus. So, but I know it needs to come through committee. So.
Put them in. 1 month left. More committee meetings.
You guys are leaving.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? No. Noted. Alderman Lippman said no. Madam City Attorney, would you please present the next item?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, are you going to assign this to any committees? It's not listed in the legislation itself.
Yes, it'll be assigned to the Public Safety, Rules and City Government, and Housing and Human Welfare Committees.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what was the last one?
Housing and Human Welfare.
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is CA 217, Offices of Law and City Clerk.
Is there a motion to adopt CA 217?
Second.
This motion was added to the agenda, so the public at home didn't have a chance to look at it beforehand. I have a copy of it now, so I think it's appropriate if one of the sponsors speak to it at this time and what it does.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the charter amendment and the accompanying ordinance, which immediately follow, create an office of law and an office of the city clerk. In looking at the city code, the charter establishes and describes a city attorney, but it says nothing about an office of law, which we happen to have, but we're not authorized to have in code. We pay for it, we hire the people, but we're not authorized to have the office. In a somewhat similar vein, the charter describes the city clerk and the deputy city clerk, and the code elsewhere in the municipal code, it refers to the office of the clerk, but it never creates the office of the clerk. So we are trying to correct these imperfections in our code.
Certainly understand that and have no objection, but at the very beginning it says it's changing the operational lines of report. I believe the way it's set up now is the clerk and the attorney answer to the mayor's office, and this would now be done to the city manager's office.
Yes, because the charter gives operational responsibility to the city manager, not to the mayor.
But in a sense, the attorney and clerk right now report to the mayor, so it seems like we're taking that power away from the mayor's office, potentially stripping it and giving it to the city manager or the council. I mean, from my point of view, I'm at home reading this, it's saying that the attorney and clerk no longer directly report to the mayor, they're going to be reporting to the city manager, thus taking away power from the mayor's office and distributing it out.
Well, that is one way of looking at it, but in my experience in large organizations, having operational responsibility divided between different executives is a good way to generate a lot of turmoil in the organization. For operating divisions, you need to have them under a common manager so that when they start squabbling with each other, somebody can knock heads.
Certainly I understand that. Just from our point of view, it's been going on under this form for the last, 100 years or so. So it seems to be a rather big change. Alderman Pfeiffer?
So I think we're approaching the point where we've talked more about first readers tonight than maybe everything else that came before, which I didn't think could have been possible. But I would just add, in the 8 years I've been on the council, this has been an issue that has bubbled up and been a point of conversation with 2 different mayors, 6 different city attorneys, multiple city managers, and lots of council members. From my perspective, it's the question of what's the best form of the relationship between these, and that the time to do it is at the beginning of a new term when we're not sure who's going to be sitting in these seats and who's going to be sitting in the mayor's office, and that's probably the time to have a conversation about how things report, because we could potentially have a bunch of new department heads, we could have a new city manager, we could have a new mayor and a new council. So if you're going to change things, this is really the moment to be thinking about it and have this debate. But I can tell you from my experience before you were here, Mr. Mayor, in the mayor's office, that this was a constant conversation about whether we should make this move in the previous administration, and my guess is even before I was here, probably in previous administrations before that. So just my 2 cents.
If there's no other discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. I refer CA 217 to the Rules and City Government Committee, the Public Safety Committee, the Finance Committee, and the Financial Advisory Committee. Madam City Attorney, would you please present the next item?
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is O4717, Offices of Law and City Clerk, which accompanies the previous piece of legislation.
Is there a motion to adopt O4017? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Madam City Attorney, would you please present our next item?
Mr. Mayor, I believe the agenda has been completed.
I want to go back and refer the former one to the same committees above: Public Safety, Rules and City Government, Finance Committee, and Financial Advisory Committee. If there's no other business, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting adjourned.